All right, everyone. So this is day 2 of the meetup game. We're currently sitting at the second table playing 5-handed when I look down at 10-9-4-2 single suit in the small blind. There's a late position raised to 15, one caller, and obviously it's a pretty trashy hand, but I have $90 incentive to make the call with $90 on the button for the small blind jackpot. So I call, and Chris in the big blind also calls. So we're going 4 ways to a flop. The flop comes pretty good for us in King 10-2 with 2 hearts. I just lead for 60, no point in messing around. One caller over to Seabass in late position. He has 175 left. He puts it all in the middle. And I think for a bit, I just go ahead and do the same. The other player folds, and me and Seabass are going heads up to a run out. The turn brings in the front door flush with a 5 of hearts. River brings a queen. So I turn over my hand and Seabass mucks. So not sure what he had, but happy to take this one down, as well as the $90 small blind jackpot. Shortly after the previous hand, we're still playing 5-handed when I look down at ace-6, 5-3-2, single suit in the big blind. So that means this hand we're playing 1-2, 10, 20, 40. Everyone calls over to Sal, who has the final option. He thinks for about 5 seconds and says, I have to do it, and makes it 200. Abby folds to me, I call, folds over to Chris, who shoves over the top. Sal does the same, and I'm not calling off half my stack just to fold, so I put everything in the middle as well, and we're going 3 ways to a run out. Flop comes out 8-6-5 with 2 hearts. Turn brings a 4. River brings a 2 of hearts. Chris turns over the ace-jack 7-6-4. So he has the nut flush, and we got counterfeited on the low on the river. So he actually has a better low than us as well. Sal mucks, and I do the same. So Chris is going to take down the entire pot here. I forgot to mention at the beginning, but if I have 5 cards in my hand, we're playing big O or high-low. And if I have 4, we're playing regular PLO. I get moved over to the other table and I look down at ace-8, 6-4 double suited on the button. Fold to Josh, who opens at 15. I call, Chris to my left makes the call, and my buddy Rob in the big blind makes the call. So we're going 4 ways to a flop. The flop comes out ace-9-8 with 2 diamonds. Checks to me, I bet 30, and Rob and Josh both make the call. So we're going 3 ways to a turn. The turn brings another 8, checks to me, and I decide to check back. So still going 3 ways to a river. The river brings a jack, checks to Josh, who bets 40. I then make it 110. Rob folds over to Josh, who thinks a bit and then says, I can beat 9s full here, and isn't sure whether to, I guess he was actually thinking about folding here, but eventually tosses in the chips for a call. And at that point, I say, you're good. And he turns over Jack, Jack, 5-5. So my bad habit of over slow playing kind of rears its head again, and I let Josh get there, and he's going to take it down. Shortly after the previous hand, I look down at King, Queen, Jack, 7-6, double suited in the small blind. We end up going 5 ways limped around to a flop of ace-8-3, all diamonds. I bet 25, and only my buddy Rob makes the call, so we're going heads up to a turn. The turn doesn't change anything with the 10. This time I bet 75, and Rob quickly calls, so still going heads up to a river. River brings a 2, now giving me a 7 low to go along with my nut flush, and I only have about 200 left, so I put everything in the middle. Rob thinks for a little bit. Now, another factor that I mentioned in the previous video is when you're in the small blind and the small blind jackpot gets pretty significant, which it is here, $150, people aren't really going to give you credit for a hand. So that's probably what's going through Rob's mind here as he eventually tosses in a chip for a call. And I turn it over, and he ends up turning over the ace 8-8-3-2. So he pretty much paired every card in his hand, and we're going to scoop it here. About an hour after the previous hand and about 4 hours into the session, I look down at ace, 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 10-9, single suited on the button. We end up going 5 ways, $15 each, to a flop of Jack 10-4 with 2 spades. So similar to the previous video, we are doing the prop bets, so I don't have to play the hand to actually get paid out on them. But, you know, being on the button with the suit, I decided to play it. And when everyone checks to me on this flop with the nut flush blocker, I decide to bet 45, and there are 2 callers, so we're going 3 ways to a turn. The turn brings the front door flush in with the 4 of spades, and when action checks to me, I just gotta continue telling the story here, so I bet 200, folds over to Josh, who's counting out some chips, potentially pondering a call. He eventually folds though, and I turn it over just to get paid out on my props, and happy to take this one down, and happy to get a bluff through just for the viewers. A little while goes by when I look down at ace-ace 7-3-2 double suited in the big blind. There are 6 limps. I make it 35, and everyone calls, so we're going 7 ways to a flop. Flop comes out 9-4-3 with 2 spades. When it checks to me, I bet 210. Folds over to Jay, really cool guy from the Chicago area. He was actually at our meetup game the last time we were here. He pushes all in for about 400 total. Folds back over to me, and of course I make the call. So we're going heads up to a run out. The turn brings a 4. River brings a jack. So it looks like a pretty safe run out for me. I turn over my hand, and Jay says I missed the world and ends up mucking his hand, but later telling me he had ace deuce 5 with the nut spade. So happy to dodge the world here and take down a pretty good pot. About an hour after the previous hand, I look down at queen jack 4-3-2, double suited on the button. There are a couple limpers. I also limp. Folds over to Jay in the big blind, who makes it 25 total. 2 calls to me, and I call. So we end up going 4 ways to a flop. Flop comes out pretty good for us in ace 9-3 with 2 spades. Jay doesn't slow down and bets 100. Folds over to me, and in the moment, I am going to put him on aces here a lot of the time, but, he definitely could be doing this with some other hands as well, say like an ace with maybe a similar low draw to myself. But, I have a decent amount of equity really against any hand, unless, he does have the nut flush draw with like a 2-4-5 or something, but I just go ahead and make it 400. Jay doesn't waste too much time before putting it all in the middle for about 755 total. And of course I make the call. So we're going heads up to a run out. The turn brings a jack. River brings a 9. So not looking like a pretty good run out for me. And Jay does turn over the aces with ace, ace, jack, 6-4. So I guess it's only fair. I dodged the world against him. He dodged it against me. And Jay's going to take down this one here. I go card dead for over an hour until I look down at jack, jack, 8-5, double suit in the cutoff. There are 3 limpers. I make it 30. Folds over to Jay in the small blind, who makes it 105, folds back to me. There's actually $160 sitting on the button that Jay can win in this hand, so really that combined with the fact that it's a meetup game, so I'm going to gamble a little bit more than I typically do. So I put everything in the middle, and Jay makes the call. So we're going heads up to a run out. Jay actually does wake up with a legitimate hand here and turning over ace, king, king, 10, double suited. We end up going to a flop of king, jack, 9 with 2 spades. So got some outs here. Turn gives us one of those with an ace of spades. So we just got to dodge a board pair here. River brings a queen. So we're going to get the small double up here through Jay. So about 30 minutes after the previous hand, about 8 hours into the session, I look down at ace, king, king, 10-5, double suited in the big blind. We end up going 5 ways, $15 each to a flop of queen, jack, 7 with 2 diamonds. Action checks to Josh, who bets 40. I make the call, and there are 3 callers behind, so still going 5 ways to a turn. The turn brings a pretty interesting card in the king of diamonds. I check, and action checks through, so still going 5 ways to a river. River brings another jack. I check. Checks over to Lee, who bets 35. Josh then makes it 165. Folds over to me. I, of course, think a bit, but make the call. And Lee says that he would have called had I not called, and turns over the queen jack. I turn over my hand, and Josh ends up mucking, so happy to get a much-needed double up here. About an hour after the previous hand, about 9 hours into the session, I look down at ace, queen, 10-9, single suited middle position. This is a $10 double board bomb pot. We go to flops of 8-6-3 with 2 clubs and 7-6-2 with 2 clubs. Josh bets 15. Brandon to my right makes the call. I then make it 65. Fold over to Josh, who makes the call, and Brandon gets out of the way. So Josh and I are going heads up to a couple turns. The turns bring a 7 on the top and a 5 on the bottom. Josh now leads again for 100. I think a bit and make it 300, and he quickly calls. So heads up to 2 rivers. The rivers bring a 3 on the top and an 8 on the bottom. When Josh checks, I think there's only one move to make. I put everything in the middle, and Josh doesn't waste too much time before folding. So happy to take down another pot and slowly crawl back to even. It was getting near closing time, and we decided to do a $50 flip. We actually ended up getting some of the Hold'em players to come over and join in on the fun. We had 7 players. I ended up taking it down. Didn't get it on camera, but felt very fortunate after being down over $1,300 to actually end up booking a small win.
What's up, guys? Wayne back here with you. So today I was in for $1,500, out for $1,550. So a profit of 50 after being stuck piles pretty early on in the session. Just wanted to again thank everyone for coming out to support Josh and I. It was really awesome. We had 2 tables that second day. I've mentioned this to a lot of people on Instagram and just through text messaging that vlogging is a lot of work. There's many hours that go into each and every one of these videos, but one of the coolest parts about vlogging is being able to go to these different places like Chicago and meet and interact with a lot of you guys. So definitely looking forward to the next time, which is going to be in Vegas. We're going to be there from June 3rd through the 10th, but we're actually working with a pretty big company there to potentially be there the end of May. So we'll definitely give you guys details on that to come. And if you haven't seen the previous episode, I'm gonna go ahead and link it up here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.